Hi again, everybody, and thanks for tuning in. Tonight I'm going to show you part 2 of how to make homemade apple cider. I've got everything laid out, everything sanitized, much of the items measured out, and I've got the apple juice warmed up. So without further ado, I'm going to show you how to mix the ingredients and how to get yourself on the way to creating your own homemade apple cider. Okay, let's do a quick recount of all the things we have. First thing I wanted to show you was the temperature. We are down in my basement, and you can see it's a comfortable 66 degrees down here. I wanted to show you that to let you know that that's just a little bit too cool to ferment our apple juice properly. So what I did is I took my 1 gallon of apple juice, took it upstairs to the kitchen sink, and I put it in a sink full of hot water for about 20 minutes to warm it up. If I put a thermometer on there, I'm guessing it's about 80 degrees, which is a good temperature to start to activate the yeast. I've already measured out 1 cup of sugar. This is just regular granulated kitchen sugar. I've got that measured out ready to go so we can dump it in quickly. And I've got a nice wide-necked funnel so when we pour the sugar through there into the apple juice, we don't clog it up with the sugar. Over here, a couple things that we covered in the first video. I've got the rubber stopper that's sanitized. I've got the airlock, which is these 3 pieces, that's sanitized. And this is a rubber gasket lid that's been sanitized. And this you can pick up at the home brew store for about 80 cents. And it threads onto the glass carboy or the wine jug nicely. We can use that while we're shaking it up to mix the stuff. Okay, if you want to do this right, you want to work in a clean work area. Again, as I said earlier, everything is sterilized. It's going to come in contact with the apple juice and the yeast. Can't stress that enough. Got the apple juice over here. It's in a 1 gallon container. We also have a 1 gallon container over here. So that means I probably want to take a little bit of this apple juice out because I want room for the froth and the bubbling and the gas to evolve up here without having the froth and the foam overwhelming our simple airlock. So the first step in making homemade apple cider is to open up this sterile bottle. Pour yourself a glass of apple juice. A little bit more. And I wanted to make sure it's not 66 degrees like it showed earlier, so I'm going to take the temperature of it real quick. And it's going to be warm apple juice. My thermometer shows this to be right around 78, 80 degrees, so that's perfect. I'm going to take a sip of this. Nice. Enjoy that later. The second step I'm going to do is to mix sugar into my my apple juice jar right here. I can do it in the glass jug, or I can mix it in here. What I'm going to do is take a wide-necked funnel, put it in here, and I'm going to pour 1 cup of granulated sugar in there, recap it, and shake it. The reason I'm doing that is just it's a nice seal. It's got a good handle, and I can shake it up really good to mix that in there. I'm putting sugar in there to increase the apple cider alcohol content. Right now, if I use my hydrometer, which I have set up, I'm not sure I'm going to use. I may show you how to do that in another video. But this will give me a prediction based on the sugar content of how much alcohol will be produced. Right now, with just 100% apple juice, the sugar in there will probably give me about a 3 to 4% alcohol for my hard apple cider. Adding sugar might bring that up to 8 to 10%. So first step here is to add the sugar. And here we go. 1 cup of sugar has now been introduced into the apple juice. I'm going to cap it, and I'm going to shake the heck out of this. Alright everybody, I shook the heck out of the sugar to mix it with this warmed apple juice. Now the next step is going to be to put it into our container for adding the yeast. I'm going to hold off on adding the final bit because I'm going to add a little bit to my calibration tube here. And I'll show you this in detail later on, but I'm going to check the specific gravity with my hydrometer. Give it a spin to get rid of the bubbles so I don't get a false reading. And the approximate alcohol potential right now is sitting at about 7%. So that falls out of the beer range and goes into the wine range. If I added another cup of sugar, I could probably get that up to 10%. I'm not sure if I'm going to do that. We're probably just going to experiment today with 1 cup of sugar per gallon of apple juice for this particular brand. So we're guessing about a 7% drink on this. And waste not, want not. Pour that back in there. Over to the next step in this process is to add our yeast. This is 5 grams of pasture red. This is an active dry wine yeast. This is for a bigger batch, so I'm going to use about half of this yeast, dump it in there. And I like to not shake it up. I like to let it sit on top and slowly saturate itself and fall to the bottom. So here's about half the yeast, or about 2.5 grams. A little bit more. I'll get this on camera real quick. You can see try to zoom in and see the yeast start to fall fairly quickly. All these little specks are being saturated and they're going down, and they'll start to devour that sugar and do their thing. I mentioned earlier that temperature is important. It's not critical to keep this in a perfectly warm area, but usually around 75 to 80 degrees would be nice. You don't want to keep this in sunlight. That'll hurt the yeast. So a warm, dark place. Alright, a recap. All we've done so far is take a gallon of apple juice, add a cup of table sugar to it, add half a pack of yeast, and we're watching it mix right now. I can cap it with this gasketed cap. Put it on the top, shake it up if I'd like, but I want to watch to see if I can see any gas evolving pretty quick. I'm curious to see how fast the yeast wakes from its slumber. This really is the simplest way to make apple cider. It's a real simple, primitive fermentation process. You don't need much equipment, and the results turn out fairly well almost every time. Okay, the final step I'm going to do is just to add the airlock to this. I've got the stopper on top right now, or the cap with the gasket. The airlock I'm going to put on the rubber stopper. Put the cap on there. Top. I'll go get some water. We'll add it to the airlock. Okay, just finishing this setup off. Adding a little bit of water to the airlock. Putting the cap on top. Now all we need is time. Apple juice, sugar, yeast, and time. We'll check back in about an hour, and I'm going to see if we have anything going on in this fermentation carboy. That's about it for episode 2. Check back for episodes 3 and I'll update you on the fermentation process on this. And we'll finish this series with a racking off of some apple cider and a taste test. As always, thanks for watching.